What would you do if the one person you trusted most, your brother, your blood, your day one, was the very person who held the weapon that ended your life? What happens when loyalty is tested not by money, not by fame, but by love, lust, and the one person you swore to protect? This isn't just a story about betrayal. This is a story about rage, silence, and secrets buried beneath the noise of trap beats and studio lights. About a promising rapper from Atlanta who had the streets talking and the labels calling, snatched from this world not by a rival, not by a hater, but by his own best friend. His roommate. His brother in everything but blood. His name. Cairo K-Rock Daniels, 21 years old, on the verge of signing a six-figure record deal. A lyrical prodigy raised in the chaos of Atlanta's East Side, where every bar he spit was drenched in pain, struggle, and raw ambition. But Cairo wasn't just talented, he was real. Grounded. Loyal. Or at least, that's what his best friend thought. That best friend? Derek D. Tolland. They grew up 2 blocks apart. Survived the same gang violence. Slept on the same floors. Ate from the same plates. From the sandbox to the studio, D and K-Rock were inseparable. Until one night, that bond shattered into something unrecognizable. Something so twisted, so violent, it left blood on the walls, a young man dead, and a city stunned. But why? What could drive a man to murder his own brother? The answer, Imani. She was 17. Paralyzed from the waist down after a childhood accident. A girl who rarely left the apartment she shared with her brother, Derek. A girl who trusted Cairo like family. But late-night whispers turned into hidden touches, and what started as innocent comfort turned into a forbidden secret. A secret that would eventually rip through the thin thread of trust, leaving nothing but betrayal in its path. This is not just a crime story. This is a psychological unraveling. A chilling exploration of friendship, obsession, rage, and the fine line between love and destruction. And as the bullets echoed through the apartment walls on that cold November night, only one truth remained: loyalty can kill. Stay with me, because what happened next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, friendship, and the dark places a broken heart can go. To understand how everything unraveled, we need to rewind to the cracked sidewalks of Edgewood, Atlanta. A neighborhood stitched together with poverty, pride, and pain. It's where Cairo K-Rock Daniels first found his voice, not in a studio, but in a half-lit basement where he'd freestyle over bootleg beats burned onto scratched CDs. Cairo was raised by his grandmother after his mom OD'd when he was just 6. His father? Gone before he could remember his face. The streets became his teacher, the microphone his escape. By the time he was 15, he was already known in local circles for his raw storytelling, spinning rhymes about gang shootouts, broken homes, and dreams that seemed too far to ever touch. But the thing about Cairo, he was different. He wasn't just surviving. He was rising. Slowly. Relentlessly. Before we dive into this story, let me ask you something. How often do we scroll past real tragedies without giving them a second thought? How many lives are shattered, lives we'll never fully understand, just for the sake of entertainment or distraction? This story? It's not just another headline. It's a painful reminder of how fragile trust can be, how betrayal can destroy everything in an instant. And if you're sitting here, listening, watching, knowing that this story will haunt you long after it's over, then you owe it to them to remember. You owe it to Cairo, to Imani, and to the countless others who have felt the sting of loss like this. So, if this story moved you, if you want to hear more about the lives ripped apart by choices that can never be undone, hit that subscribe button. Because stories like these need to be told. And they need an audience that cares. Don't look away. Subscribe now, and don't let their stories be forgotten. Derek D. Tolland. Where Cairo was calm and focused, D was fire, loud, impulsive, always chasing a quick flip. But their bond? Unbreakable. Born out of shared trauma, forged in loyalty. Dee was the only one who stood with Cairo during his lowest, sleeping in trap houses, selling mixtapes from the trunk of a '98 Chevy, dodging bullets and broken dreams. And then there was Imani Tolland. Dee's little sister. 17 years old. Paralyzed from the waist down since the age of 9 after a hit-and-run accident that the driver never answered for. She had once been full of energy, dancing on school stages and spinning in circles like she had wings on her back. But that one night changed everything. In 1 second, her world went silent from the waist down. Imani became the stillness in their world of chaos. Soft-spoken. Brilliant. Artistic. She painted with her mouth, literally, brush in lips, canvas in lap. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her words cut deep. There was light in her, even when she was drowning in shadows. After their mother died of lupus and their father dipped out of their lives, Dee became Imani's full-time guardian. Their tiny apartment became both sanctuary and prison. 3 rooms. 1 bathroom. No real privacy. Dee hustled to keep the lights on. Cairo moved in to help cover rent and focus on his music. It was a brotherhood, a shared struggle, until the line between family and desire got blurred. At first, it was innocent. Cairo would help Imani with her art setup. Wheel her out to the patio for air. Talk to her about music, poetry, things Dee was too distracted to notice. She felt seen. Not as the disabled girl, but as a human. A woman. And Cairo, he didn't mean for it to happen. But sometimes comfort turns to chemistry. Late nights. Soft laughs through the walls. Whispers when Dee wasn't home. Cairo didn't talk about it. Imani didn't ask for anything more. But it was there, lingering in every glance, every accidental touch. And maybe if it had stayed hidden, buried deep under guilt and good intentions, things might have played out differently. But secrets have a shelf life. And Dee. He started noticing the changes. The way Cairo looked at Imani. The awkward silence when he walked in the room. The long pauses before answers. There were other red flags too. Dee's temper had been flaring more. Money was getting tight. Cairo's focus on music meant he was gone more, and Dee felt the weight of everything, bills, street pressure, and now, suspicion. Then came the breakthrough moment in Cairo's career. A viral freestyle. A local radio interview. An A&R from Interscope flew down to meet him. A deal was close. Cairo was finally on the cusp of everything they had worked for. But fame, it changes everything. Jealousy creeps in like smoke under a door. Dee, who once cheered the loudest for Cairo, started to feel left behind. Like the sidekick in a story he thought he was starring in. And with that jealousy came paranoia. Was Cairo gonna move out? Was he gonna take Imani with him? Was he planning to cut Dee out entirely? Dee started watching. Snooping. He hacked into Cairo's phone one night while he slept. Found messages. Voice notes. Nothing explicit, but enough to confirm his worst fear. Cairo had feelings for his little sister. That betrayal, it wasn't just romantic. It was spiritual. Dee had sacrificed everything for his family. Gave up his life to care for Imani. And now his best friend, the only person he still trusted, was creeping behind his back. And here's where things start to crack open. Dee didn't confront Cairo. Not at first. He let it boil. He let the images fester in his mind, Cairo touching Imani, kissing her, saying the things he never dared say out loud. In Dee's mind, it wasn't just sex. It was a total invasion. A violation. And with every passing day, his anger grew darker. He started carrying his gun inside the apartment. Loaded. No questions asked. And still, he smiled at Cairo like nothing was wrong. Still, they shared meals. Still, they laughed at old YouTube videos and smoked joints on the balcony. But underneath, something was breaking. Because betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's silent. A countdown ticking toward blood. November 3, 2023. A Friday night like any other, until it wasn't. The apartment was unusually quiet. A light rain tapped against the windowpane. Imani had spent most of the day painting, headphones on, zoning out to the soft hum of lo-fi beats. Dee was in his room, pacing, gun tucked under his mattress, thoughts spiraling out of control. Cairo had just come back from a late studio session. He was glowing. Euphoric. His A&R had sent over a pre-contract. $200,000 up front. A mixtape release scheduled for spring. He was ready to tell Dee everything, to celebrate the come-up, to share the light. Maybe even tell him the truth about Imani. But that moment never came. According to police reports, the 911 call came in at 10:42 p.m. A neighbor on the second floor had heard what she thought were fireworks, but something felt wrong. The sounds came too close together, too sharp, too urgent. When she peeked through the peephole, she saw smoke seeping from under the door of apartment 3B, Cairo and Dee's place. Then came the scream. A scream that didn't sound like fear. It sounded like heartbreak. When officers arrived, the hallway smelled of gunpowder and faint incense. The front door to 3B was slightly ajar. Inside, they found Cairo's body collapsed in the living room, face down, a pool of blood spreading underneath him like a shadow. He'd been shot twice, once in the chest, once in the head. Execution style. The apartment was trashed, chairs overturned, glass shattered, a hole in the drywall where something had been thrown. No sign of forced entry. No valuables missing. This wasn't a robbery. It was personal. In the corner of the room, barely breathing through sobs, was Imani, curled up in her wheelchair, covered in blood that wasn't her own. Her face was frozen in a look of shock so raw, paramedics thought she might have had a stroke. But she hadn't. She had witnessed everything. It would take 2 full days before she could speak. As word spread across Atlanta, the city lit up with disbelief. Kerock dead. Social media exploded. Fans posted freestyles. Rappers lit candles. Vigil murals started appearing on alley walls. Cairo had been next. The one they all believed in. And just like that. Gone. The public demanded answers. Police, meanwhile, worked fast. They pulled surveillance footage from the apartment complex. No signs of intruders. No one suspicious entering or leaving around the time of the murder. Which meant it had to be someone inside. Inside meant only 2 people, Imani and Derek D. Tolland. Detectives brought D in for questioning 12 hours after the shooting. He was calm. Too calm. Said he had gone out that night to pick up food. Claimed he came home and saw the flashing lights before he even reached the building. No alibi. No witnesses. But something wasn't right. D didn't ask about Cairo. Didn't ask what happened. Didn't cry. He just sat in the station, hands folded, staring at the wall like he was already somewhere else. Police asked about the gun. D said he didn't own one. But when they searched the apartment, they found a Glock 19 in the laundry basket, wrapped in a towel. The serial number. Filed off. The magazine. Half empty. Ballistics would later match it to the bullets pulled from Cairo's chest. Even worse. Gunshot residue was found on Dee's left hand and hoodie sleeve. But there was still Imani. Detectives waited until she was strong enough to speak. Her voice, in the recorded statement, was shaky. Barely above a whisper. She said it started with an argument. Cairo had finally told Dee everything, about their relationship, about the feelings they'd tried to hide. Said he wasn't gonna lie anymore. He wanted to be honest. Wanted to be with her. Officially. Out in the open. That's when Dee lost it. He started yelling, punching walls, accusing them of betrayal. He screamed at Imani, called her sick, said she was playing victim. Then he went to his room. Cairo followed him, trying to calm him down, to talk him out of the rage. Imani says she heard yelling. Then a loud crash. Then silence. Then, bang. Bang. She rolled into the hallway, just in time to see Dee standing over Cairo, gun still in hand. Blood everywhere. She froze. Couldn't scream. Couldn't move. Dee just stood there. Breathing heavy. Tears in his eyes. Then he turned to her and whispered, "You made me do this." Then he dropped the gun and walked out. Crime scene investigators found no signs of another person inside the apartment. The only fingerprints on the murder weapon. Dee's. The blood spatter patterns indicated close-range shooting, confirming Imani's statement. One shot in the chest. One in the head. No defensive wounds on Cairo. He never even raised his hands. The murder was calculated. Controlled. Imani's clothes were covered in Cairo's blood, but none on her hands. No GSR. No evidence she touched the weapon. Text messages pulled from Dee's phone showed a spiral of obsession in the weeks leading up to the murder. Messages never sent. Notes filled with rage. One chilling line stood out from his drafts: "If he touches her again, I'll bury him where he stands." That was dated 2 days before Cairo's death. Atlanta was shaken. The hip-hop community went into mourning. Candlelight vigils lined the sidewalks of Edgewood. Freestyle tributes flooded YouTube and TikTok. Cairo's posthumous fame soared, his unfinished tracks leaked, his lyrics now read like prophecies. But the shock wasn't just about Cairo's death. It was about who had done it. His brother. His best friend. His day one. Fans debated online, was Dee justified? Was it twisted loyalty? Was it jealousy masked as protection? Talk shows discussed masculinity, disability, and betrayal. News anchors used phrases like crimes of passion and rage-fueled revenge. But behind the headlines was a sister in a wheelchair who had lost her protector and her lover in the same night. And the man responsible was still insisting, "I did it for her." November 6, 2023, 3 days after the murder. It was just after sunrise when Derek D. Tolland was formally arrested. The officers didn't need to bang down doors or chase him through alleys. He was already waiting on the apartment stairs, hoodie over his head, eyes sunken, hands trembling slightly. He didn't resist. Didn't say a word. As they cuffed him, neighbors watched from cracked doors and windows. Some whispered. Some wept. Most just stared in stunned silence. This was the kid who used to run block parties with Cairo. The boy who carried his sister to doctor appointments on his back when their elevator was broken. The one everyone thought would die protecting his people, not destroy them. But now he was in the back of a cruiser, headed to Fulton County Jail, charged with first-degree murder. The prosecution didn't hold back. They charged Dee with first-degree murder, possession of an illegal firearm, and tampering with evidence. Given the premeditation evident from his unsent messages and the point-blank nature of the shooting, the DA pushed for no bail, labeling Dee a flight risk and a danger to others. His defense attorney, LaToya Green, a sharp public defender with a record of taking on high-profile cases, fought back hard. She argued that Dee had snapped, not out of cold-blooded intent, but out of emotional overload. She floated the idea of extreme emotional disturbance, a strategy aimed at reducing the charge from murder to manslaughter. Her narrative painted a picture of a young man emotionally crumbling under years of pressure, single-handedly caring for a disabled sibling, struggling with financial stress, and blindsided by betrayal from the one person he trusted most. But the prosecution, led by ADA Marvin Holtz, tore through that defense like tissue paper. They called the killing deliberate, methodical, and selfish. This wasn't an explosion, Holtz argued. It was a decision. A choice. He didn't snap, he calculated. And Holtz had evidence, the unsent messages. The texts. The gun stashed in the laundry. And the timeline that suggested Dee didn't immediately flee or call 911. But left his sister to process the horror on her own. Imani's statement, though painful, was the linchpin. She told the court, tearfully, that Cairo didn't threaten anyone. He didn't fight. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply told Dee the truth. And for that, he died. Her words crushed the courtroom. The case became a nationwide headline. Betrayal and bloodshed in Atlanta. Rap star gunned down by childhood best friend. Podcasts analyzed every frame of Dee's mugshot. Hip-hop forums were divided. Some painted Dee as a jealous coward, a ticking bomb of toxic masculinity. Others saw him as a tragic protector, misled by emotion and a flawed sense of loyalty. In some circles, Imani was unfairly dragged into the storm. Whispers online accused her of leading both men on, of betraying her brother. Others rallied behind her, calling her the true victim, caught in a crossfire she never asked for. The trial hadn't even started, and already, the court of public opinion was in full session. YouTubers built timelines. Reddit threads dissected every word in Dee's notes. TikTokers speculated on conspiracy theories, that maybe it wasn't Dee, maybe there was a third party. Maybe Cairo's rising fame made him a target. Maybe someone else had a reason to silence him. But the facts? They didn't lie. Then came a twist. Just 6 weeks before the trial, an anonymous envelope arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse. Inside, a flash drive containing audio files, secret voice memos from Cairo's phone. Recordings never released. He had been documenting everything in private, his music, his thoughts, even conversations with Dee. One clip in particular sent shockwaves. Dee ain't been right, man. I think he knows. I don't want to fight him, but I ain't gonna lie about what I feel. Imani deserves love too. And I ain't ashamed of loving her. The defense tried to block the audio, calling it inflammatory, but the judge allowed it. In the prosecution's eyes, the recording sealed the emotional motive. It made Cairo human, not just a rapper or a target, but a man in love, trying to do right. The same week, another motion dropped, a mental health evaluation ordered by Dee's lawyers. The report claimed Dee showed signs of complex PTSD, dissociative episodes, and unresolved anger rooted in childhood trauma. They weren't pleading insanity, but they wanted the jury to understand why a boy so full of love could become a man so full of rage. The courtroom prepared for battle. March 2024. After months of headlines, arguments, and emotional roller coasters, the state of Georgia versus Derek Toland officially began. Opening statements were explosive. The prosecution laid out a timeline of betrayal, rage, and premeditated execution. The defense told a story of emotional collapse, of a brother blinded by fear and betrayal, of a man who made a horrible mistake in a moment of heartbreak. Witnesses were called. Imani testified, breaking down midway through. Her testimony was raw, filled with guilt, sorrow, and moments of silence that hung in the room like ghosts. Cairo's manager testified about the record deal, confirming Cairo had planned to move out, and likely take Imani with him. A neighbor, the woman who called 911, recalled the terrifying scream. And finally, the forensic experts laid out the evidence. Every inch of blood. Every text. Every speck of gunshot residue. When Dee took the stand, it was heavy. He didn't deny killing Cairo. He said, "I didn't mean to. He was all I had left." And he took the only other thing that mattered. Some jurors wept. Others stared stone-faced. But no one in that courtroom was left untouched. The courtroom had become a crucible, where grief, rage, and betrayal collided with the raw weight of justice. For days, testimonies had crashed like steel on steel. Every word, every tear, every piece of evidence was a thread in a tangled web that would decide the fate of Dee Tolland. By the second week of the trial, the room was packed. The benches were filled with family, reporters, fans, and curious onlookers. Everyone had a stake in this, some more personal than others. The weight of the world seemed to press down on those who filled the room. Imani Tolland, Cairo's sister, had already taken the stand. But it was far from over. Her testimony, laden with grief and guilt, had set the stage for a courtroom drama that would unfold in unexpected ways. The defense began by painting a picture of Dee as a broken man, not a murderer. Dr. Marcia Willoughby, a psychiatrist, testified that Dee suffered from undiagnosed PTSD, caused by years of stress and emotional turmoil. She described Dee's mental state as fragile, overwhelmed by the weight of caring for his disabled sister, and blinded by betrayal. The defense claimed that Dee didn't plan to kill Cairo, but in a moment of emotional collapse, he acted out of rage and confusion. It was not murder, it was a breakdown. But then, the prosecution tore through that narrative with brutal precision. They introduced new forensic evidence, Dee's skin found under Cairo's fingernails, a sign that Cairo had fought back, even if only for a fleeting moment. It was the last shred of hope for the defense's argument that the killing was unintentional. And then came the DNA, the moment that stunned everyone in the courtroom. A smudge of blood. A fingerprint. A match. Dee's DNA on the gun, matching the residue found at the scene. The evidence stacked up, piece by piece, and it was becoming increasingly clear that this wasn't a crime of passion or impulse. It was deliberate. As the final arguments approached, the prosecution hammered their case home. This was not a crime of mental breakdown, this was murder. Cairo was betrayed, not just by the man he considered his best friend, but by someone he trusted to protect him. The jury had to see that Dee's actions were premeditated. The defense, however, clung to their argument. Dee Tolland was a product of his circumstances, of years of trauma and neglect. He had been forced into a role he was never prepared for, taking care of his sister, fighting for survival, and ultimately losing his mind in the process. But it wasn't enough. The prosecution's closing argument cut to the core. They painted a picture of a young man who, despite all of his struggles, had choices he made. Dee raised a gun, looked into Cairo's eyes, and pulled the trigger. It wasn't a crime of confusion. It was a crime of choice. And so, the jury was sent to deliberate. The room fell silent as the jury returned after 8 long hours. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, every person in the courtroom holding their breath. The forewoman stood, her hand shaking as she held the verdict. The judge motioned for her to speak. Her voice echoed in the room, steady, though the weight of the decision was clear in her words. On the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. A ripple of emotion passed through the room. Imani gasped, clutching her stomach, her eyes welling up with tears. Cairo's mother, devastated, collapsed into the arms of a relative, her sobs breaking through the tension in the air. Dee, in contrast, remained stoic, his face pale but unreadable. He didn't flinch. Didn't speak. He simply exhaled, a long, slow breath that spoke volumes. The decision had been made. Dee Tolland would face the consequences of his actions. 1 week later, the sentencing hearing arrived. The courtroom was full again, but this time, there was no sense of relief or closure. Just a profound emptiness that lingered in the air. The judge, after reviewing the case, the evidence, and the emotional toll on all parties involved, passed down the sentence. He addressed Dee directly, but his words were not soft. This is a tragedy with no winners. 2 young lives lost. 1 in a grave. 1 behind bars. The law demands accountability. D was sentenced to 35 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 28 years. The judge's gavel echoed, marking the official end to the trial, but no one in that room felt closure. The damage was done. In the aftermath, life went on. But nothing would ever be the same. Imani Talan disappeared from the public eye. Rumors circulated that she had moved to a different state, starting a quiet life away from the tragedy that had consumed her family. Some whispered she still wrote letters to D, while others said she never spoke to him again, the pain of what he had done too great to overcome. Cairo's music, however, surged to new heights. His posthumous album, Brother's Keeper, dominated the charts, the pain and beauty of his lyrics resonating with millions of fans around the world. Murals dedicated to him were painted across the city, memorials that immortalized a man who had lost his life too soon. And D. He faded into the background. Behind bars, his name no longer made headlines. Some say he spends his days writing poetry. Others say he stares out of his prison cell for hours, haunted by the one mistake that shattered everything. This was not just a story of murder. It was a story about trust. About the fragility of human relationships, and how easily they can be destroyed by jealousy, betrayal, and unchecked rage. It was a reminder of how love, when twisted and left untended, can become the sharpest weapon. And in the end, there were no heroes. Only the echo of a gunshot, and the lives that would never be the same again. This is where the story ends. But the memory of it will remain forever, etched in the hearts of those who lived it, and those who will never forget. Thank you for staying with us through this deeply emotional and heartbreaking journey. Stories like these remind us of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Cairo, Imani, D, they all deserve to be remembered. If this story moved you, if you found yourself reflecting on the pain, the choices, and the lives affected, then I ask you to do one thing: subscribe, like, and share this video. Every click helps keep these stories alive and ensures we never forget the lessons they teach us. Subscribe now to stay connected with the most gripping true crime stories, stories that matter, stories that need to be heard. Thank you for watching, and remember, the truth always comes out, even when it's hard to hear. Until next time.